Hi, I'm James McGuire, and today we're talking about artificial intelligence service management, how it's used in business and how it works with other technologies. And in particular, we're going to look at what exactly is artificial intelligence service management. That's the big question for the hour. To discuss that, I'm joined by Margaret Lee, General Manager and Senior Vice President, Digital Service and Operations Management at BMC Software. Margaret, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and the eWEEK audience.
You know, we were talking beforehand a little bit in terms of your career. I think you've had kind of an interesting career. You've got a neat background. You've worked in a number of different places. Can you talk a little bit about where you've been prior to BMC?
Thank you, James. Yeah, so I joined BMC in the early 2021. Prior to BMC, I've had the opportunity to work at a number of enterprise software companies, including Oracle for more than a decade, and the early days of Splunk and CA Technologies. And I've also had the opportunity to sprinkle in between them, a number of startups and unicorn type of companies. So I've been very fortunate to be part of several generations of technology refreshes in software.
It's really interesting. Okay, so you've really seen the scene. One last question before I ask you about AI service management. I have this sense these days that enterprise IT is far more complicated than it used to be. It's always gotten a little more complicated over time, but it feels like the last, say, 2, 3, 4 years is taking this almost hockey stick jump upward in complexity. It could be just my imagination because it's hard for me to keep up with it all. Do you sense that things are becoming more complex than ever before?
Absolutely. Enterprise software was never simple, right? When you're talking about mission critical systems of record at scale, that was always complicated. But things like DevOps transformation, cloud and hybrid, now you're adding AI, a lot of algorithms, adding massive amount of data that's growing exponentially. Yeah, it's no longer simple. It's beyond human grasp sometimes.
It's really true. I find it amazing. Well, I think that probably brings us naturally to AI service management. So, you know, what is AI service management? I mean, the emphasis here seems to be on using AI to manage the IT service process, similar to AI ops, perhaps. So please clarify us. What is AISM?
Sure. Service management has been a bread and butter core function for IT teams pretty much since technology existed. And traditionally, service desk teams handle everything from laptop and account requests to service tickets. And then there's problem management when things go wrong. And then there's change management when something needs to be changed. And then there's incident management when something actually goes wrong, right? So what we're seeing is over the last couple of decades, and particularly over the last 5 years or so, the volume, the variety of these tickets just explodes, right? So sometimes because there's so many changes, sometimes because there's a lot of the surface area of the application or the number of employees coming on boarding and the different type of tickets. So the idea that with AISM is using AI technologies to recognize patterns, to do predictions so that the service desk team is not overwhelmed and they are resolving most critical issues, right?
Well, actually, the software itself, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the software itself is resolving the issues as opposed to merely pointing them out to the human staff?
There's several steps. The first is help the IT teams recognize an ocean of tickets, other patterns, other clusters, other priorities. What are the most urgent, right? So that's the first step. That helps the teams to point to most important tickets. Second, for simple ones, for tickets that are repeated, that can be fully automated to recommend actions and have things taken care of. So that way the humans can really be reserved for really complex decisions or tickets that requires judgment, it requires unusual decision making. So that's all for AISM on the market today.
So, all right, that's really interesting, and obviously, I definitely see the need for that because it gets back to the complexity we're talking about. Is that, you know, I mean, in the old days, so to speak, the humans really could do it all, and I think we've gotten to the point where It's the humans need some help. We built these systems that actually it's hard for us humans to actually manage. Sort of ironic in a sense. So, all right, let's talk about how artificial intelligence is being used in the real world in conjunction with IT service management. You've talked about it a little bit. What are some of the top real world use cases? And I think there might be a survey involved. I mean, I love the surveys because we have great percentages. Is
Yeah.
this the part where we talk about the survey, Margaret?
Well, what we have done, BMC, we have sponsored 2 years in a row now, a survey about AI SM, AI applied to service management with AI ops, right? And that's one of the hot topics today in the industry is
Right.
if you're looking at service desk and then you look at your operations team, they're essentially the two sides of the same coin. So for example, if you're looking at a employee website, employee facing website, and that is composed of different services, maybe HR related, maybe a commerce related site, right? There's an issue going on. You may have lots of users start creating tickets. There's a problem, there's an incident. They can point to what end users can raise. They can say, can't log in, systems crashing, systems slow. Mapping out to the back end, the other side of the coin, these are all just applications deployed on complex systems. Maybe it's microservices on containers, infrastructures, eventually on cloud infrastructure hardware. So if you can combine these two, and you can very quickly not just cluster the problem, understand the tickets and what is important going through and for the end users, you can very quickly pinpoint the root cause analysis. You can very quickly start apply remediation end to end. So this capabilities is critical if we companies want to move faster, wants to put in, want to go through the digital transformation, whatever the tagline projects. This is to connect the back end, the front end to see all data together is a must-have, which is why this is very high on the priority for CIOs and CTOs. So the survey you're talking about, we recently surveyed about 400 decision makers, technology decision makers in companies that's greater than 500 million revenue, right? And then 65% of them saying that combining the data, the insights from service management and operations management is essential to their innovation and to their DevOps teams. So more than 50% of CIOs or CTOs are personally involved in these projects that combine the merge of the AI service management operations management data to serve up consolidated analytics.
Did I hear this the number more than 50% are involved? I mean, and should I infer from that that there's a pretty big chunk that are not involved, which says that may relate to the fact that AI is still not completely mainstream. Am I understanding that correctly or not necessarily?
Yeah, those are two different, probably orthogonals, right?
Right.
More than 50%, meaning that the CIOs and CTOs see the projects important enough to be able to see the service management, operations management, to apply AI technology on both, so they can solve the problem holistically, right? The rest of the teams maybe still looking at it AISM individually or AI ops individually. So we're talking about people who are looking at these projects together and look. It's a reflection of priority in the IT organization.
Gotcha. Okay. What about the idea of pairing AI service management with AI ops? Is it a natural marriage, or what's your view on that?
It is. So service management, like I said, if you think about the CIO's organization, for years, there's a core function service desk. The other core function is operations management, right? So NOC centers, SOC centers, and the service desk, these are just core functions within IT organization. Like I said earlier, today, in the world of agile development and continuous release and DevOps, right? These two are essentially looking at the same set of changes, same set of risks. It's just looking at it from end user service desk perspective or the IT monitoring perspective. So these are very much related, and it's driving this convergence. And the BMC is very much focused on that because that's what we see with our customers. And we want to provide the integrated experience for them.
Definitely. No, and well, educate me a little bit in terms of the difference between service management and operations. Obviously, AI service management is is helping with service management. AI
Mhm.
ops is helping IT operations run faster.
Yep.
Even if we take out the AI piece, what is the difference between service management and operations? Are they not, like, in many ways extremely overlapped, or not really?
No, they're not, right? If you think
Okay.
about it, the visual would be the service desk. It's a help desk. Some company literally call it IT help desk, right?
Oh, okay,
There,
good. All right, good.
there is a certain part of the work, right, is what I call very, very, doesn't involve backend operations. Things like, oh, I need to provision a laptop for new hire, or
Right.
that kind of I need to add an account. I need to find a facility, new cube or room for a
Yep.
new hire. These are all IT service desk related accounts and facilities and technology devices. But then there's a whole set of service desk is about, I'm having issue logging to my account. My website, that I use, my Workday, my ServiceNow is not responding, or the new application which is put into production for some marketing campaign is super slow. So
Mhm.
those are service desk tickets, right, or problems that are
Right.
logged by non-technical employees or even customers or partners. Or
Right.
they will provide a very sort of non-technical symptom to the service desk. Now the service desk take those tickets in, they have to turn around, before they have to turn around and say, operations, what is going on? Why is this website crashing? Why people cannot log in? Why are issues? And then they would interface with a
r-
customer, right?
Right.
In today's world, that front end help desk, service desk, and the back end is becoming closer and closer linked together. Yeah.
So really, when I see the phrase service management, am I accurate in thinking, oh, that's help desk, or is it just part of what the help desk is?
I mean, service management has grown way beyond the original help desk, right?
Gotcha. All right.
I use the word just to help so for people have a visual, for
Yeah.
some people,
Right.
visual, right? So the one challenge with service, you and I were on a different chat session earlier about
Yes.
DevOps, right? So the
Right.
whole emergence of DevOps has put tremendous amount of sort of load on the service desk, because DevOps continuously build new features and
Right.
put it in production, build new features, put in production, right?
Oh, yeah.
Continuous change stream. When you have a continuous change stream, inevitably the customers will have all sorts of questions. I don't know how
Of
to use
course.
it. This is different. This thing disappeared. This is slower. So the front end logging of service tickets
Mhm.
is going from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands, right?
Right.
Probably a lot of redundancy in them. When you put a
Yep.
new version in, different 100 end users all have the same problem. They may word it differently, they all have the same problem.
Right.
Now how do you resolve that? So the emergence of DevOps put a lot more number of tickets into the service management system, but
Hmm.
also they put a lot of monitoring and operational challenges in the back end as well, because you're constantly dealing with a changing system.
Interesting. Okay, so that I think I really get that. And it never occurred to me the way that DevOps would create some challenges for some users. Of course, it would, because it accelerates the process of development, so that
Mhm.
the end users aren't necessarily going to be confused in some cases. I mean, it's a better system, but it's a more challenging system.
Mhm.
All right, one last question on that, and that, all right, so I totally get AISM, but
Mhm.
then there's AI ops, which is, of course, AI to help us run our IT operations.
Yep,
That's really help us to run really the technical infrastructure.
absolutely.
I think I see the overlap there.
Mhm.
One question about AI ops. I have this theory, and tell me this is really half baked, in that artificial intelligence will really be running the entire enterprise, including the IT department. And so it
Mhm.
won't be limited to IT operations. Artificial
Mhm.
intelligence will run the entire enterprise. So the
Mhm.
idea of AI ops will, over time, become somewhat obsolete, because AI will be running the entire infrastructure, not
Yeah,
merely this one department.
yeah.
Does it make any sense, or did I just make that up out of thin air?
So I think I read something you had actually written about at
Oh
some point.
no, Margaret, that was your first mistake, I think. But
I think
okay, please.
there's something about AI eventually get dropped, just like people, electric cars, electric will get dropped. People just call it cars.
I think that was my analogy. Show me how wrong I am, please.
So I think right now there is a increasing percentage of tasks, IT operational tasks, they'll be taking over progressively over time by AI or automation, right? So for
Okay.
example, at this point, even as we sit today, the prospect of looking at your entire system to be able to pinpoint memory, CPU capacity, potential outage as you see different metrics going from green to yellow to red, and then be able to see the dependency and understand the overall service is going from green to yellow, but it's those three nodes that are oversaturated. So therefore, automatically add capacity to those nodes real time. That whole loop, even today, is completely doable without human intervention if you can get your algorithm and your automation set up. Because adding memory to a particular node is fairly simple task, right?
Okay.
So in the past, it requires a human to see red to yellow. It requires a human to see it's yellow because those two nodes. It required a human to add capacity. All of that is simple tasks that can be stringed together by automation and the recognition of the problem through AI, right?
Right.
That's one category. That category of tasks is being over time automated, replaced by algorithm. However, there's a much more sophisticated in terms of architectural design, right? So, okay, we are going to expand to international locations. How do we load balance, think about balance the workloads from different geography? Where should we locate our data center? How should we architect our infrastructure layer? What kind of design should we have? How granular should our microservices be? Those kind of questions are never going to be automated by AI. So that means the operational team, in another 5 or 10 years, right? So even today, as you see the trend in industries, pure operations teams members, the skill sets are being replaced by SRE engineers, right? That's what Google has done for the industry over the last since 2014. Now everybody, like, I can't actually be an operations engineer. I need to be SRE. What's the difference? SRE write code, write automation, understand capacity, understand predictability, understand incident, and all of that. So the next natural progression.
Very, very quick interruption. The SRE stands for, can you tell us what the acronym means?
Okay, initially when Google created is Site Reliability Engineer, right?
Okay.
Site Reliability Engineer, and there's whole book in industry about that. That's probably one of the hottest jobs in tech right now is Site Reliability Engineer. So that essentially is take the traditional operations monitoring engineer to the next level. They think about automation, they think about capacity, they think about incident resolution. The next level after that is sort of site reliability engineer, including skills expanding into design, into architectural considerations, right? So surprisingly, just like automation in manufacturing has pushed up the skill set requirements for people in that space, AI and automation is already pushing up the skill set requirement for people in technology and operations.
Right. So, all right, I totally understand that. That's super interesting. How exactly does that answer the question like that? This large artificial intelligence presence will run the entire enterprise, including the IT department, and so there won't be something called AI ops. Is that how does that question get answered?
Oh, so I think you're right. At some point, there's going to be sufficiently amount of AI, like people will be like, yeah, of course we're going to do with the AI. Who's going to manually do X, Y, Z anymore, right? So it just becomes operations. That's just going to be how operations are run. At some point, once there's a tipping point of, I don't know, 40, 70% of tasks and recognitions. Yeah, I can see that. Maybe not in the next couple of years since the space is still new, but at some point, there will be just obvious things that's not done by humans anymore.
Right. All right. Interesting. Okay. So let's look to the future. I mean, I'd love to get your sense of what you would forecast as the key trends for the use of AI in the enterprise in the years ahead? I mean, say if it's the middle of the decade, which is not that long from now. I mean, what sort of milestones or what sort of trends might you see if you look into the future of AI?
Yeah, that is a really pulling the lens back. Just AI for companies, enterprise in general, right? I think
Right.
what we just talked about is very just one function, IT function, right?
Yes. Right.
The I know that even, for example, one area I see a lot of rapid expansion is in user self-service user experience,
Uh-huh.
specific for things like chatbots, right?
Okay.
And digital assistants uh, within BMC service management offering, right? So the adoption of chat and particularly AI-driven chatbot is surprisingly fast, right?
Uh-huh.
In terms of adoption and people's mindshare transition is almost overnight. So
Oh,
chatbot has gone from, oh, companies want to deploy chatbot to improve efficiency of live agents so they can handle more tickets per agent, to
right.
a preferred user experience. Millennials and younger, they don't want to talk to people. They don't want even want to chat with people. They want to use a chatbot self-service. So digital assistant, chatbot, automatic translation, knowledge management, I think this area is going to mainstream. It's no longer
Interesting.
a gee whiz kind of thing. Over
Right.
the definitely by 2025, more and more companies will be the default. So the natural language processing, knowledge recommendation, I think is approaching mainstream in capability. Second piece is wherever there is data overload, right? So we
Hmm.
talked about data overload in IT is too many microservices, too much log data, too much components on-prem
Right.
and hybrid. But you could see others like in HR, like resume filtering. When you get 10,000 resumes, how do you process that
Right.
intelligently, right?
Right.
Anytime you have large volume of data and overload, AI can help to use a variety of technologies. And
Hmm.
the last piece, and probably is one of my favorite sort of personal interests,
Hmm.
before BMC, I was with a mapping company and
Hmm.
had the opportunity to work with some of the folks in I won't name names, but
Right.
in
Right.
autonomous vehicle space in
I,
terms of automation.
well, I can only guess the company, and they're probably really good with search, whoever they are, but I don't want to name the name.
Actually, no, it's a competitor to do that. It's
Oh, okay. All right.
startup
Very good.
startup startup competitor to do that, right?
All
So
right.
definitely I saw very exciting automation robotics and everything from consumer vehicles, but more interestingly, things like robotics in large warehouses that self guide and optimize a route to pick up packages and things like that. So
Huh.
yeah, AI is very exciting. Everything from chatbot to robots and cars and huge data processing. So
Hmm. Interesting. Margaret, I think you said it, and I definitely learned quite a bit. Thank you for educating me, and I greatly appreciate you sharing your expertise today. Thank you very much.
thank you for the opportunity.